Let's start exploring approach plates by looking at the header, the information at the very top, and the footer at the bottom of the plate. When you're flying an instrument approach, one of the very first things you'll want to verify is that you're using the right chart and it's for the right airport. Flying the wrong procedure will probably lead to very unhappy results. Now, the header is where you check that you're using the procedure you intend to. Check to see that the chart is for the correct city and airport. Now, that may sound silly, but many cities have a number of airports to choose from, and it's easy to grab the wrong chart. Now, in the top and bottom right corner of each chart, you'll find the city and state as well as the airport name with its identifier. In this case, Independence, Kansas, the Independence Municipal Airport IDP. NC2 under the airport name tells you that this approach is in the North Central number 2 volume, and next to it you'll see the effective date. This information and the page number over here in the center can be helpful in putting a loose leaf chart back into the proper place in the book. Take a look at the name on this plate for the Denver International Airport. In this case, ILS Runway 7. So what's in a name? Well, for an instrument approach, the name's pretty darned important. Because of its name, you know that it's an ILS approach, which will line you up with Runway 7. Pretty simple. Well, now, buckaroos, let's take a gander at this here approach at Durango, Colorado. The name of this one is ILS DME Runway 2. The name tells you that this is an ILS approach aligned with Runway 2 at Durango. But note that additional bit of information in the name, DME. They include DME in the approach name for Durango, but not for Denver, even though the ILS for Runway 7 at Denver does have DME information available. But DME in the name is not there to tell you that the ILS has a co-located DME. In fact, at Durango, the ILS does not have a co-located DME. The DME in the name tells you that you must have DME equipment or an approved DME substitute like an IFR GPS to fly that approach. So, in the case of the ILS DME Runway 2 approach, you would use the Durango VOR DME to fly an arc and locate the Hindi intersection designated here. So in order to use this procedure, you must have the equipment to fly that arc and identify that fix. Now, on the other hand, the fixes on the ILS Runway 7 approach at Denver have cross radials you could use to identify those fixes without DME. So DME isn't required and it isn't in the name. Now let's take a look at this approach at Parsons, Kansas. Its name is VOR Alpha. If you look at an approach name and see a letter instead of a runway number, it means the approach doesn't meet the criteria for a straight-in landing to a runway. Either the final approach course is not aligned within 30 degrees of the runway or within 15 degrees for a GPS approach, or the descent angle is too steep for a normal approach for landing. In this case, you would need to maneuver, maybe by making a turn to downwind in order to make a normal landing approach. This is called circle to land or a circling approach. We'll talk more about techniques for flying circling approaches a little later on. If you look just above the name, you'll find the amendment number for this procedure. It's followed by the year and the number of the day in the year that this approach plate was issued. By the way, this way of expressing the date is referred to as the Julian date. If the chart has never been revised, you would see ORIG for original here. Now, the combination of letters and numbers at the top in the center tells you the chart reference number and the issuing agency. in this case, the FAA. You can locate approaches using the index in the front of the book, which will give you the page number, or by thumbing through the charts. Now, the charts are organized alphabetically by city without regard to what state it's in. Oh, and by the way, Jeppesen organizes their charts differently. Their charts are organized by state first and then by city. As you can see, just by looking at the header and the footer of the chart, you can learn a veritable plethora of valuable information that you need to know about each and every approach.